clearly Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the Commission, and her cabinet were in charge of this. So, I mean, the buck stops there. And, there were people who should have run this through the political channels. I mean, there's an Irish commissioner who would normally have said, hang on a second, what, have you thought this through?
That's Mary Ann McGuinness, and she knew nothing about it either.
She didn't know anything about it, according to her own testimony about this, and the Irish government obviously didn't know anything about it. So as soon as they found out about it, which was basically by Twitter or by news reports, they, officials in Dublin contacted Ursula von der Leyen's cabinet immediately, and then set up a higher political interaction between the Taoiseach Micheál Martin and Ursula von der Leyen, within an hour. And I mean, the Dublin will say, look, yeah, it was awful, but they did reverse course fairly quickly once they realised the implications of this, or realised our interpretation of the implications of this, which of course were very serious.
And what is the aftermath, as it were, either politically or emotionally? Is there a sense that it was more cock-up than conspiracy and swiftly dealt with, or does it speak to deeper fractures or problems?
Well, I think it's more of a cock-up than a conspiracy, because the view from a senior Irish official I spoke to on Friday night was like this, it's completely far-fetched, the idea that vaccines would somehow get into Ireland and then be sort of...
Well, that was the problem watching from this side of the sea. It just didn't make sense.
It didn't make sense at all. No. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to reverse course so quickly would suggest that this was more of a cock-up than some masterful plan to deliver what, I don't know. But, this was the chain of events that it was reversed within a couple of hours. I mean, you had obviously fallout in Northern Ireland. The DUP were extremely angry about this, because they have said from the beginning of January that Article 16 should be triggered, mainly because the problems of getting goods into Northern Ireland and the problems with supermarket shelves and so on. So you can understand their anger, like, if it's okay for the Commission to trigger this in a heartbeat, why can't we? So there was that fallout. I think the Irish government, is concerned that we have had a changing of the guard with Michel Barnier. He's finished the trade negotiations. He's moving on to other things. His team, which managed the whole protocol over 4 years, is being dismantled. And, there's institutional memory loss happening very quickly. And the Irish government are anxious that they have ongoing conversations with the Commission to make sure that the protocol is looked after and that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
And Barnier, of course, one of the first to call foul on that triggering on Friday night. Final question then, Tony Connelly, would be well, you've seen how it's played out on this side of the Irish Sea. I'll read you a quick line from Trevor Kavanagh in The Sun. He says, VDL is merely the figurehead of a mafia regime which is rotten to the core. She is a puppet manipulated by German Chancellor Angela Mutti Merkel and malignant French President Emmanuel Macron. This was a political Me Too moment when the scales fell from everyone's eyes. Now we can all, Remainers as well as Brexiteers, see the European Union for what it is, a corrupt cabal run by third-rate incompetence. I'm sure you'll join me in welcoming this opportunity to all move forward together. Does that analysis chime with any views on the other side of the Irish Sea?
Strong words indeed. No, I mean, I think people were just shocked because of how it unfolded, and no matter who I spoke to, they all come up with the same analogy that this was classic sledgehammer nut territory, and a grave mistake which was corrected within hours. So I mean, there is a bigger context here. The critique, I think, in the UK of the EU in this vaccine situation is the EU was slow to enter the contracts. Then the authorization process is slower than in the UK, and yes, that's true. But I mean, the EU's approach was supported by all member states, which was we're better off pooling our resources and negotiating as in a block of 27 countries with pharmaceutical companies in terms of the cost of it and in terms of the ability for small and poorer countries to get the vaccine. And that was the rationale behind it. Now, everybody loved that idea at the time. The trouble is, if something goes wrong, then that flips immediately and suddenly everybody hates it. And countries like Germany are saying, like, why didn't we do this on our own?
Which they could have done, of course. Which they could have done.
Yeah. But if 27 governments had been negotiating against each other to get vaccines, countries would have been left behind. And, the nature of the single
fighting
market
over
means, yeah, exactly. I mean, the nature of the single market is that Germany could be healthy, but if Poland next door is not healthy, then what's the point? Because you have free movement of goods and people, and you've got economies that are completely interlinked by the single market. So the EU has to kind of get healthy at the same time. Now, unfortunately, that means it just is slower by its nature. And that's a problem. And, it's no use saying on paper, this is why things have to happen. Of course, lessons would have to be learned from this. And also the European Medicines Agency doesn't have the legal basis to do an emergency authorization like the UK regulator does or individual regulators. So, they have to... a vaccine is being put into millions of healthy people, so they have to follow their procedures to make sure the vaccine is safe, and that takes time, of course.
I hear you. So size matters, sometimes as a positive, sometimes as a negative. I don't know if you've seen this, Tony, in conclusion, and I'm not quite sure who it is. He's speaking from behind a European Commission lectern, and he's just, in explaining the